Welcome to PhD with Women on It Hack the Future. My name is Beata Young, and today's PhD Positivity Hacks delivered will be by our guest, Priyanka Komala. Episode 47 starts here. Let me remind you, this is a grassroots community that focuses on women on IT, an inclusive forum of women in technology, startups, and female leaders who are supported by men as well. And I bring heart to that hustle because empathy is my motto. And empathy is critical when you are making STEM a default choice. In today's episode, we are going to learn about why is STEM a default choice. Being the world's largest, second most populated country with unmatched talent and culture, having the world's largest young population, India can certainly exploit the opportunities presented by the current need for software engineers and developers. The science, technology, engineering, and mathematics STEM fields are collectively considered the keystones of an advanced society, and very often parents in Asia dream of their children pursuing a career in these fields. The Wall Street Journal reported in 2011 that 75% of India's tech grads aren't qualified for jobs in the very high-tech global industry India has become famous for. In this episode, we are joined by Priyanka Komala, dynamic trailblazer in the STEM space, who has carried her experience into a multiple of channels, from conference rooms to radio talk shows. She's also the CEO of Curryup Leadership, which includes a podcast with over 100 episodes that serves to platform the accomplishments of various Asian leaders and innovators who are making an impact in their field, and a one-on-one public speaking coach to increase women's representation on the technology stage. Her outgoing attitude and driven approach to her work has brought her steady success. But her passion for uplifting and empowering others along the way is perhaps her most remarkable feat. Priyanka, let's start with a simple question. Where in the world are you today?
Well, thanks for that wonderful introduction, Beata. And hello, a very warm good afternoon for the people who are in the Eastern time zone here in the US, or I should say good evening to the people who are watching in different time zones. So I'm joining you guys live from Washington, D.C. On a beautiful sunny afternoon as I'm looking at the woods that line my backyard. And Beata, I'm so excited to be on the show and share my insights as a woman in STEM and what I'm doing to make the world a better place for representing more women in the technology space on the stage.
I remember, Priyanka, we were scheduled for sometime last year. I think it was June or July.
Right.
Yes. And unfortunately, we had a lovely chat before, and you told me something that really sunk into my mind. STEM is a default choice in India. Can you tell me a little bit about why such a title?
Thanks for the kind introduction to begin with. A lot of the audience can relate to what I'm saying. So let me give you some context behind my upbringing. So I grew up in India and then moved to the US to pursue my education. And for me, a lot of career choices that I made were just so natural. But then when I looked at people around me and I was like, okay, what are you majoring in? What do you want to do when you graduate out of grad school? People had too many choices, especially when I went to school here in the US. And I was like, why are people making so many choices? For me, my parents made my choice, and this was part of the cultural upbringing. Growing up in India, STEM is a default choice. And by that, I mean, you're either destined to be a doctor or an engineer. You don't get more options beyond it. And the thinking behind this, to a lot of viewers who might be interested, is having a career in STEM, especially for the Asian parents, makes you feel that you will have a stable job going forward and your career is going to go in a set path that will lead you to success and a lot of growth trajectories going forward. So for me, I should applaud my parents for believing in me and sending me all the way to the US. They literally packed my bags when I was 21 and they told me, hey, you have an amazing academic background. Your future lies on the other side of the world where you explore more opportunities to become a real trailblazer and surround yourself with more trailblazers, especially in the STEM space. And a little trivia behind this part of it is as I was growing up, probably when I was 13, 14 years old, that's when computers came into more personal space. They were in the commercial use, but in terms of having a computer at home, those big white boxes, that's when it started in the early 2000s. And my parents invested all their earnings. And I come from a regular upper middle class family, and they invested all their earnings in getting me and my younger sister a huge compact computer, which we used to play around, learn a lot of things, and get really ahead of the curve, considering the other students in my class. And that's how my introduction to STEM really happened.
Well, it's interesting what you're talking about because I remember my class where we had to share our computer. I didn't have a computer at home, and we did coding in DOS, and that's about it. And it was the least exciting thing I could ever imagine. So, how do we, as educators or as parents or as people trying to get more women into tech, how can we encourage that culture of going into technology?
That's a great question, Beta. And I remember those MS-DOS days. And as I remember my nostalgic memory lane, we used to hang around our computer lab because there was only one computer at home. It's not like we have several devices where each one has access to it, right? So I used to hang out at my school's computer lab after my school for a couple of hours and get to learn a lot about coding and how things work. So when I connect the dots, the one thing that really stands out, Beta, is curiosity, curiosity to learn more. That really empowers us to explore STEM. And I have a toddler at home, so as I'm looking at what can I what can I teach him, what can I teach him beyond the alphabets and numbers. I'm looking at how do I incorporate STEM in every aspect of people around me. It's the act of curiosity that really makes people feel that STEM STEM is not something, it's not like an elephant in the dark room. It's accessible, it's easy, and it's approachable. That's the kind of mindset shift we need to do as parents, as educators, as teachers to help each one succeed. So, planting that seed of curiosity, saying, hey, here's something that we can play around with, and here's the impact it creates for the bigger world. So, people know that it's not just a checkbox that you'll have to fill to have a STEM degree because everybody around you is saying that you need to have a STEM degree to get a stable career. But it's more about what can you learn? What can you discover about a lot of these scientific concepts in an easy to understand manner?
Gary Lowe, founder of Australian coding training firm Creator Academy, says IT education needs to be better. We need to teach kids coding with visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learning styles, and we need to adapt this learning method for adults to attract more people to science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, he says. Would you agree?
That's bang on. A lot of influential leaders are talking about, you know, the dearth of uh, the dearth of good STEM folks in terms of building a talent pipeline. In the US, it's been a huge challenge when you look at how many qualified STEM professionals exist in the space and how do we continue to fill this talent pipeline. And there are a lot of issues, be it with gender gap and how there's a lot of people who lose the STEM who who get on. I should say that who actually we are losing as part of the STEM talent pipeline. So it's a huge challenge, and I think we need to do whatever we can to empower more people to stay in the STEM field. Getting people into STEM as part of helping your high school students get into STEM activities to help college graduates choose STEM as their majors is a great sign. But as I've been more experienced in the tech space, in the STEM space, from a career standpoint, I see a lot of people drop out after a point because of different career issues, because of family life balance. So a lot of factors do influence creating this talent pipeline and strengthening the talent pipeline in STEM going forward.
I have to tell you, Priyanka, that I really struggled with my lessons of computing because I didn't really have a real examples. And one of the other things is you don't have really inspiring teachers. And I was wondering, with your speaking abilities and your latest venture, in public speaking, what would you say how to encourage teachers to be inspirational in that field?
I agree with you, Beta. We need to have strong role models. That's something that I've always emphasized when I speak with groups in various capacities, as a keynote speaker, as a panelist, as a mentor. We need to have people who look like you, who talk like you, who come from similar backgrounds. So that the careers that you're envisioning are accessible and approachable. When I go to a lot of events where I talk to and spend a lot of time with middle school, high school girls and boys in STEM space, they come to me and they say, can you be my mentor? Or can you help me find a mentor? Because they need someone who can guide them through this process so it doesn't feel like it's a lonely journey. And I think it also starts from your teachers, because your educators are part of your journey, right? And they're at the initial um, part of the pipeline where they can really help you succeed. And when I look back, there have been certain teachers in my life as I was going to school in India, be it my mathematics teacher, my science teacher, who really made these subjects to be something that was more engaging, that I looked forward to rather than dread going to a science class. So the effort starts from teachers. But also, I would say it starts from a network of people like you and me who can continue to reiterate the message that we are here to support each other succeed. And as part of that comes communication. How do you articulate this message in the right way so it goes to the right audience and they feel like, hey, there are people around me that I can reach out to. It doesn't have to be a full blown mentorship, but to have a simple coffee chat to say, like, hey, I'm having these challenges as I'm looking at high school in STEM. What advice would you have for me? Or the favorite question that most of the course students ask me is, what advice do you have for your younger self? If you were in our shoes, what would you do to build a career in STEM? So that's how I would see there are a lot of pieces to this puzzle, be it teachers, be it parents, be it a supportive STEM network like Women on IT, who can really help build this talent pipeline for the future.
Benjamin Franklin said, without continual growth and progress, such words as improvement, achievement, and success have no meaning. Tell us about your growth and progress.
That's a really thought provoking question, Beta. I should really be very candid here. To me, I've always been a very career oriented, ambitious person. When I packed two bags, and my parents literally gave me a flight ticket and they were like, go figure it out, but we are here to support you. From that age of 21 to where I am today, in the last few years, it's been a growth process every single step, because I had to figure my way out and then find a supportive community who would rally for me, who would cheer for me. And it's a mutual win win both ways. So, being a lifelong student is something that um, it's hard to achieve, because after a point, when you have your educational credentials, your stable career, being able to fulfill a lot of your dreams and goals, you kind of hit that stagnation point. But you need to have that ignition in you saying, okay, what are other things that I can do to really better myself? And I know I might be getting a little ahead of the game, but I'm happy to share some exciting projects that I'm working on for your audience as well.
Right. So, what would you say is an exciting project for somebody who would consider a career in STEM?
There are 5 essential skill sets that I would say for any person who's considering a career in STEM. And that starts right from public speaking. You know, there's an interesting fact that we talk about, which is people fear public speaking. They feel they can go into a coffin but not get onto stage. That's the amount of fear that people have about public speaking. So that should be an exciting project for you, a work in progress in terms of how do you communicate your thoughts in the right manner? How do you get your message across? And that comes through the art of public speaking. The second one being collaboration. And you can think of all these five essential skill sets that I'm talking about that you can implement in any project that you're working on. The project could be your own personal development to really position yourself in the STEM space, or any kind of scientific project or a research project that you might undertake going forward. So start with public speaking. The second one being empathy. Something that I really feel has a chance to improve is being more empathetic towards each other as you work on complex challenges at work. And three is collaboration. The more you get into STEM careers, you realize that it's not just a one person show. You need to have a strong team that works together. So you must be in a position to collaborate, have empathy for each other, at the same time, communicate what's really happening. And then the fourth aspect is persuasion. Things don't happen just like that. Even if you know clearly who's doing what, there's a lot of persuasion and influence that needs to happen in any aspect of your project. And then the fifth aspect, which I want to talk a little more deeper, is personal branding. There was a recent Gartner report that says that the job descriptions that you see today, 30 to 40% is going to be invalid in the next couple of years. So how do you reskill yourself on a constant basis? You get into STEM space, hey, that's cool, but what are you doing to continue your learning in STEM, developing the different skill sets that are needed to really bolster your career going forward? That's something that you'll have to sow your thought at the back of your mind. And in terms of personal branding, how do you really articulate and position yourself in the STEM space is very important. So people have a lot of myths about this is how a scientist looks, this is how a technology professional looks. Hey, for example, I'm a tech professional, I'm a technology leader, but at the same time, I make sure I share the wisdom that I've learned. At the same time, I position myself as a thought leader. I speak at conferences and events to inspire people to be their best versions, be it in the STEM space, be it in your professional space. So those would be the five key factors that you'll have to consider. And I consider myself a project that I'm currently working on.
So it's very interesting that you mentioned about speaking, because just yesterday, 25th of January, is Speak Up and Succeed Day. It's celebrated on the fourth Tuesday of January every year. The speaker and author Mary Ellen Drummond established it, and we celebrate the day to observe the importance of the ability to speak up in public setting. How, and this is my very kind of personal question, because I felt so many times uncomfortable after speaking up and speaking my mind when nobody else spoke up, when things were going kind of not the way I was expecting, and I had to speak up. I felt like the urge of speaking up because everybody was agreeing to a nonsense. How do you speak up without that urge of excusing everybody and being true to yourself?
That's again another great question, Beta. When you think about public speaking, it can happen in several capacities, several channels. The format might be different, the stage might be different. You might be on stage doing a keynote versus you might be sitting in a tight room of people, packed with people, talking about the next steps on a project, right? So for me, everybody goes through this feeling, Beta, no matter the amount of experience that you have. I've been in the public speaking business for the last 10 plus years, but every time when I'm in a room setting, the first thought comes into your mind saying, okay, do I really need to speak up? Can somebody validate my thoughts? Maybe this isn't a question that needs to be asked. Maybe everybody knows the solution to this. Why should I really interfere? But those negative thoughts, when they circle at the back of your mind, that's when you have to stop them and go forward with what your thoughts are and have a voice at the table. The more philosophical thing that I've learned in my public speaking and career journey is you are your own enemy. You stand in your own way more than sometimes you might think it's others, but it's you. So go ahead when you get that feeling that maybe I should hold my thoughts back. That's exactly when you have to raise your hand and say, I have an opinion to make. And people don't have to agree to it, but at least getting your thought out matters. And diversity of thought is something that I really would emphasize more about. People need representations, people need to hear the voice and opinions of everybody who's sitting around sitting around in a table. So when you have those thoughts, take a deep breath, speak up, and the world is still going to remain the same. Nothing is going to nothing is going to explode, but you know that your thought has made a difference in the long run.
Well, it's time for my favorite quotation, which is "Just be yourself. Everybody else is taken." We have a great question from Marianne Madera. Hello, Priyanka. Is it too early to plant seeds on my 1-year-old nephew? Starting young on STEM? Do you have any tips?
Hey, that's amazing. Thanks, Marianne, for this question. As I think, you don't need expensive STEM toys. I know there are a lot of STEM toys in the market, aiming for this age group, but simple things such as, let me give you an example. I have my remote control for my TV that sits in my living room. And when my kid tries to pick those parts, take out the back flap, take out the batteries, and then try to put it to get back together, the first instinct that I usually get is like, hey, don't do that. Don't rip it apart. But then I've learned after observation that I need to step back when kids are exploring. As they're exploring, pulling things out from cabinets with safety measures. You don't want them to put their hand inside a electricity plug, but letting them to explore things with a sense of curiosity is when we have to step back. I mean, your home could be a little bit of a mess trying to put things back together, but I've learned that imperfection is okay as you're letting kids explore STEM in the most low hanging fruit way. I mean, it doesn't cost you anything, but then it helps them explore. And then now my kid actually, he's 2 year old and he reaches to the remote, he switches it on because he's figured out which is the power button. He knows how to, flip lights on and off. And when I tell him, hey, can you switch on that light? He knows what exactly I'm talking about. So I think those are simple steps in which we can help them get started. And probably as they grow up, you can tell them the technicalities behind what exactly happens when you switch on the power button.
Hmm. So that's very useful. There are lots of resources. I'm sure, Marianne, you're gonna be checking on that. For such a young age, I think tinkering and being a bit creative is the way to go, because so many parents go for an easy solution, which is ready-made toys, whereas even starting with building blocks or Lego blocks is something that can boost that creativity in kids. Let's go to another question from Olga Vasina. You mentioned collaboration, Priyanka. I think women are good at that, but how do we make sure some of us can also reach the top to lead the team?
That's a great question, Olga. So collaboration is key to get work done, but at the same time, how do you articulate the fact that you are leading the team is the question. And that stems back to the fact, in terms of what are your career goals. If you want to be, say, a project manager, a product manager, whatever career path you choose, you got to be bold and ask for those opportunities at work. Have a conversation with your manager, and it's the start of the year. As you reflect on your career goals, if you want to take on a team leadership position, if that's what makes you happy and that's what you're passionate about, go and ask for those opportunities. You might get a no, but it doesn't matter. You can articulate, hey, here are the three things why I should be leading this team. Hey, I'm good at collaboration, and collaboration is really key to be a leader for teams, because you need someone who's not stuck with just their opinions, but is a keen listener, can help people come together for a common vision, get things accomplished, and get projects across to the finish line. So that's a great quality. that you should really advocate yourself for and get those leadership positions. You don't always have to be a team player if your desires are to go beyond it. But being a team player with a collaboration skill set is essential for your success. So I would love to hear, Olga, when you have this conversation with your manager, ping me back on LinkedIn or Instagram to let me know how the conversation goes.
Absolutely, especially given the fact that so many people are talking about the pipeline issue, which is we need more women at the bottom of the industry, nothing changes at the top, and we still have white blokes talking to white blokes about other white blokes. Now it's time to go to a white bloke who joined our discussion today and is supportive of Women on It. I POV it in Patrick's opinion. Patrick, lovely to see you here. Fascinating that you promote STEM and public speaking, Priyanka, a brilliant nexus. So, how did you end up promoting public speaking as a STEM professional?
That's a great question, Patrick. Thank you so much. I should take you back to the memory lane. So I stood up on stage at the age of 5, giving a speech about how an airplane works. So that's my introduction to public speaking as a STEM professional, right there, I should say. And I've been a constant learner since then. As I moved to the US, I was a good orator back in school, getting all those prizes as I was doing Asia Pacific level competitions where I was winning things. And then I realized, hey, this is a cool skill set. I didn't really realize the impact back then. But then as I moved to the US, I became a distinguished Toastmaster as I honed my public speaking skills to position myself and strengthen my credibility, strengthen my authentic voice wherever I go. So I like to add that sparkle when I walk into a room and take charge of the energy in that space. So for me, public speaking was very natural as a STEM professional. But then as I looked around, a lot of people had trouble articulating their thoughts. How do we get to where we are, maybe as a team player? How do I get to the middle level manager? How do I get to the executive level manager where I'm able to speak my thoughts to the top leadership and get buy-in, get persuade them to hear my thought process. So those are some of the critical things that I was thinking as I got into my public speaking journey, and then started seeing people around who needed help. That's where I founded Curryup Leadership, which is a boutique firm that specializes in leadership and public speaking coaching training. So I do provide one-on-one coaching services for people who are really focused on improving the fear of public speaking, trying to remove the fear of public speaking from their dictionary so they can position themselves as strong leaders in the STEM profession. And the other point I want to emphasize is if you look at the representation of women, especially on the technology stage, we only have 24% of female professionals who get on stage and share their thoughts. I want to fix that gender gap as much as I can. And uh, I would love to be of help to your audience as well with public speaking coaching.
Great. If you would like to reach out to Priyanka's website is just displayed in our comments section. And if you have more questions for Priyanka, please feel free to join our discussion tonight because this is your moment to hack the future. Priyanka,
Absolutely.
you touched upon a very interesting topic, which was female branding or creating female role models. And that's a very interesting because just a few months ago, I was in the Bahamas and I talked about the simple steps females can take to position themselves. And one of them was talking and bragging as you wish about themselves. So, which platforms do you use and how can we find you to learn more about you?
Thank you, Beta. And I would say to all the viewers who are listening to this episode, uh, it's okay to talk about your accomplishments. It's okay to talk about things that you're good at or things that you're learning, because there are a lot of people around us who would be inspired, who would be motivated. And this could be through your writing, through your speaking, through the work that you do. So never hold yourself back from expressing your thoughts through that half-written post on LinkedIn or that tweet which you feel is still not adequate. One action item I would love to see you guys do after this session is go ahead and post that article, tweet the thing that you're passionate about without second guessing yourself. And you can find me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my professional activity platform. I've been an early adopter of that platform, so you can find me there, Priyanka Komala. I'm also active on Instagram, where you can see a little bit behind the scenes about my journey, exploring joy in my work and life, and helping people through public speaking coaching. So you can find me pretty active on those two platforms. And then there's my
That's
website, priyankakomla.com. And as Beta mentioned in my introduction, I host a podcast, Curryup Leadership, and this focuses on uh, innovative Asian leaders, and a lot of them come from the STEM space. So you can find this podcast on any podcast streaming platform, and I would love to hear your feedback on inspirational STEM stories that you can get from there as well.
absolutely. You can reach out to Priyanka on LinkedIn or her website, or you can join us tonight and ask a question just like in love and in pain. Ask us just now. Hi, Priyanka. How to deal with people who tend to stick to their very old ways, like not learning how to use Google?
Thank you for that question. You know, the first thing that comes to your mind is, this is just the way the world works. But again, this goes back to, one of the skills that I talked about as a career-oriented person. Remember empathy, trying to understand where this person's point of view is coming from. I mean, we have to deal with people from different generations, and there's a lot of resistance to change, especially in the tech space. You might be savvy on the smartphone, but you can't expect the same level of adaptability from everyone. So I would say understanding their point of view, sitting down with them with a sense of empathy, um, asking them, hey, why you're doing what you're doing, and tell them, hey, here's a better way in which you can find the answers that you need. And by the way, here's the search platform that is the solution for a lot of Dr. Fix-It things, Google. So I think that could be an approach, but I would say start from empathy, where you really try to understand what's driving this person's behavior, rather than looking at why is this person not doing something that's just common sense.
That's beautiful what you said, because I remember one of the reasons we had to postpone our today's live stream was because in that time when we had scheduled our discussion, unfortunately your dad passed away. So everything was put on hold. So we had to have this understanding that sometimes people are just not there to do whatever is needed to be done, or their mind is occupied with something else. And Priyanka, I'm sure it was very difficult time, so I'm really grateful for you to join us tonight, today, or in the future, hopefully, once your great leadership programs carries on and you can talk about all these people who went through your coaching program. But actually, you sent me a correspondence and told me that we have to be mindful of creating a STEM impact with purpose for people around you.
Right. First, let me say thank you for your kind words. After all, we are humans. I love being in the spotlight, sharing my stories, but then there are times when you have to step back and really assess situations when you have, things that are beyond your control. And I'm quite sure my dad was always an ardent supporter of whenever I was on stage, be it with my podcast or any of the shows. So I'm quite sure he's listening and, blessing me all with all his best wishes. So thank you for bringing up my dad. That means a lot to me. And thanks for being so empathetic in terms of giving me this opportunity. So going back to your question about creating more of an impact with purpose, and this again stems from a lot of my own life experiences. Until my dad passed away, I was focused on, okay, what do I do for myself in terms of my dreams, my goals, being a TEDx speaker, writing a book, which I'm doing right now on how to overcome the fear of public speaking for women in the STEM space, and a bunch of my own personal and career goals. But then it was a moment of awakening for me when my dad passed away. I was like, life is so short. And, at the flip of a button, you might just vanish. And I'm like, what's my legacy? What do I want to be known for the next generation, for my kids and for the peers and people around me? And that's when I felt creating a STEM impact with purpose. In whatever I'm doing, I want to be mindful of sharing my wisdom, sharing my challenges as a STEM professional, and in what capacity I can be of help to give a lifting hand to somebody who's trying to come back, come through this journey in the elevator. And I want you all to think about it as well. It's nice to have all the fancy necessities in life, but at the same time, think about what's your legacy. How are we going to help each other succeed? And this comes through simple acts, um, being empathetic, being kind. That's where it all connects back to, is what I feel. And that's how this mission statement of mine is to create a STEM impact with purpose wherever I step into.
Mm, that's beautiful, Priyanka. I wanted to also bring attention to the fact that, as Bernard Baruch, American financier, said, millions saw the apple fall, but Newton asked why. So we have to be curious. We have to have that curiosity to create better products, be involved in STEM, be involved in creating good technology. Can you tell us a little bit about how you built your career in STEM?
Thanks, Beta. And as I said, it was a default choice, which aligns with the theme of
Mm,
this session, right? So for me, it was a choice that was made. It was pre-packaged for me in terms of my career choice. But apart from that fact, getting into STEM is fun, but what you do going forward, which means you have to be thoughtful in terms of a career trajectory. And for me, it's looking at people around me has helped a lot in terms of finding role models. So for me, I have a lot of role models, but these are not people that I talk to daily, but I follow them maybe on Instagram. I follow them on LinkedIn. I see what are they doing to grow their career trajectory, and then I try to see if this aligns with what I want to do with my life. Why can't I pick the best pieces that somebody has tried and tested, and push myself to go behind those opportunities, find the people that I want to work with. And that's really helped me elevate my career in STEM. Because when I started as a STEM professional in the US, Peter, there was a huge cultural shift for me, though I went to school here in the US, in terms of adapting myself to the work environment, working with people who don't look like me, who don't talk like me. It was a huge barrier to overcome, but I was able to successfully do it and build a brand, a position for myself, because I created this supportive network of people who focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion and believed in me. So you have to go behind these opportunities, knock those doors, don't feel offended by no's, and go after your dreams and goals. So um, a lot of it comes from your inner drive, is what I would say, to build a successful career and surrounding yourself with the right kind of people.
I'm fascinated by who your role model is, but before we delve into that, we've got Sheba Wilson, who was our guest just last week. Sheba is asking, what will your legacy be, Priyanka? That's a question every leader should ponder and determine.
Thank you, Sheba, and so glad to have you as a fellow guest on the show. It's always nice when you have fellow guests who come back and support the show as well. This is a great question. It's a reflective question, and that's something still in the making. I want to be very candid. I haven't really figured out what my legacy is. It's still in the making, because as we wear multiple roles as a woman, you understand that you're playing the role of a mom, a daughter, a spouse, friends, your personal self, for self love. So you're playing all these multiple roles, wearing these multiple hats. So for me, a legacy is something that makes me happy, gives me joy in my lifetime on this planet, but at the same time, inspires people to come out of their shell and break barriers, especially overcome the fear of public speaking as a STEM professional. That's definitely going to be part of my legacy. But follow me as I figure out my own legacy going forward. I would love to exchange conversation with you.
Well, I can tell you, Priyanka, Shiba lives in a beautiful island, beautiful by nature, Turks and Caicos. So I think you can visit her
Oh,
in
that would be lovely.
beautiful resort that she's leading. She's the HR leader there. So going back to role models, who is your role model and why?
I have two role models. One is my mom. For a lot of us, moms are our role models. My mom didn't have college education. She comes from a very small town from the southern part of India. But then I don't know how she came up with this bold vision of sending two daughters. We're just two girls, not just two. We are two girls, I should say. And she packed her bags and sent us to the US to pursue my education. And then my sister joined me for her undergrad education in the US. So that's a bold dream, even in 2010, 10 years ago. It's still a bold dream to focus on your girls education and send them and believe in them. And she gave me a free hand to figure out life and opportunities that lie ahead. So I owe a great deal of gratitude to you, mom. I know she must be listening, and to my dad as well, who's been a very supportive, the most kind gentleman I've ever met in my life. The second role model being Indra Nooyi, the former CEO of Pepsi. She comes from my same hometown, Chennai, in the southern part of India. And history says that when I refused to eat dinner at night, my dad used to talk me about Indra Nooyi and how great she was and how I should aspire to be somebody like her. And I've followed her career path to as much as I can. And I hope I get an opportunity to meet her sometime now that she has a new book that just got released, which you should all check it out.
Well, it's a great role model. Indra Nooyi is definitely somebody we would want to have on our show, and maybe then you can, ask her question or have that opportunity
Hey,
to
that's
speak
awesome.
to
We need
her.
to have her on both our shows.
Exactly. That's
That's the goal for
that's
2022.
excellent. Absolutely. And all the best to your mom. I
Thank
hope she
you.
enjoys the show and
Thank
enjoys
you.
your praises, Priyanka. Now, let's go back to the STEM question and the default education question. You were talking about not looking for validation from people around you, and I think it's very important when you develop your public speaking skills. Can you tell us about the fear of what other people might think? How do you deal with that?
Based on experience beta, I've realized speaking is an art. Public speaking is an art, and it depends more on how you're rewiring your brain. So mindset shift is what really matters. And I've two things I should say. One is public speaking comes naturally to me because my dad is a lawyer, so speaking on stage is part of my genes. So thanks to that. But the second aspect is there are certain practices that I follow that which I'm happy to share with your audience that really helps me stay calm, poised, and shift my mindsets whenever I have negative thoughts running in the back of my mind. And that includes 10 to 15 minutes of consistent meditation practice when I take time for myself and really reflect on thoughts. Sometimes not reflecting on anything really helps as part of meditation, but having that quiet space for you at the beginning of your day really keeps me grounded. So I'm not really looking for external voices to guide me, but I look for my own inner voice whenever I have negative thoughts springing in the back of my mind. So that's one thing. The second one is I have a journal. I'm a big fan of journals. So if you want to be friends with me, gift me a journal. That's what I my friends joke about. I love collecting journals, and every day I spend 5 minutes writing things that I'm grateful for. How do I want to make my day awesome? Some positive affirmations, which I high five myself in the mirror, and then I'm set for the day. I know that even if somebody tries to offend me, I still have a thick skin that sometimes I don't bother. But at the end of the day, irrespective of all these different practices, be empathetic to yourself, because we are humans. At the end of the day, you might feel upset, disappointed, frustrated, and it's okay. And it's rooting back. Meditation really roots you to get back to that zen zone. You don't have to be a monk, but 10-15 minutes every day really helps you feel that sense of inner peace that will guide you to a better day and stay in tune with the flow of the day, no matter the direction it takes.
We have a question. I think it's a follow up on my question. How do you help people, say, shy, introverted IT folk to whom public speaking does not come naturally, Priyanka? So, apart from that routine kind of way of getting your mindset focused, is there anything else for introverts that you would say is a great way to break that?
That's a great follow-up question, Patrick. We have this concept of introverts, extroverts, and then you have ambiverts, people who are a mix of both. And if I look at myself, I'm an extrovert when I'm on stage, when I'm speaking, but at home, and I'm an introvert. As I was talking, I love having quiet time, reading books, doing meditation practices. So it's okay to be an introvert or extrovert. It doesn't really define you as a person. That's the message I want to emphasize. And in the STEM space, in the tech space, I work with a lot of folks who enjoy being behind the scenes. They're like, tell me what you need. I'll give you the deliverables. Don't ask me anything beyond that. So I work with a lot of people, and I, it all goes back to the strengths that you have. If coding is your strength, if being behind the scenes is your strength, let it be. Don't force yourself to always be on stage. You don't have to get into that persona that doesn't come natural to you. But one thing I would leave you with is think about the value of the opinions that you have. And this goes back to the rewiring of your brain, right? So think about, hey, this is something that I should be talking about. Let me say that. Don't stop yourself from saying that, thinking, okay, I'm an introvert. I don't really have to say anything. That's the first step. The second step I would say is have a peer accountability person. Make friends with other people in your team. Maybe they could be people like me who love to talk and articulate, or they could be people who are on the same stage as you. But you have someone who would give you that push when you tell them, hey, you know what, I want to be more articulate and speak up at meetings as part of my professional development. Can you help me by being my accountability coach? Just push me when I'm in the meeting, and when I'm second guessing myself to speak up, maybe you would say, hey, let's hear what Patrick has to say. And that puts me on the spot. And then that gives me the push to actually talk and speak up. So that could be, another practice that you can try. But start with your mindset shift and then have that supportive network of people who can really push yourself, because it's not going to be a one man or one woman show. You need to have a supportive group of people to cheer for you.
That's exactly what we talked about just last week with Shiba Wilson. And going back to the STEM topic, while science and math are core components of a STEM education, they are not gatekeepers. If a student struggles with math or science, they can still succeed in STEM. They just may need more support as they learn these subjects. Some students may even find it easier to learn math and science concepts through a STEM program because of the hands-on approach that uses real-life context and examples. So talk about the Pac-Man philosophy to have fun in STEM and life, as life is too short, Priyanka.
That's very true. And this is a philosophy that has helped me succeed. So I would love to share it with you. So, Pac-Man, as you know, it's the game that we played in the 90s, right? If you're kids from the 90s or the early 2000s, you have that Pac-Man that walks through the maze, eating all your, the things that come across your way. And I see those small things that the Pac-Man is eating as your fears, your insecurities, things that are holding you back from being the best version of you. So the P starts with positivity, which is what this session is all about, right? Positivity hack
Yeah.
delivered. It's not that you have to fake positivity, but being in a positive state of mind really helps you focus on things that you want to achieve in your life. So I'll start with P for positivity, A for allyship. As you've heard me repeatedly saying, have a supportive group of people who rally for you, who cheer for you. So when you feel down, when you feel like, I don't want to, write that book proposal that I'm working on, you have people who are asking you for the status update. Hey, what's happening, Priyanka, on that? So having a supportive group of people as part of your allyship. And C stands for collaboration. As we spoke about, one of the top career skill sets that are needed, being in a collaborative mindset really helps you get closer towards your goals. And M again is manifestation. I'm a big believer of having positive affirmations, manifesting, visualizing your day. So manifesting how things need to go for you, feel free to do it. If you see yourself in a beautiful beach in Hawaii, why not working from your laptop? That's one of my dream goals, by the way. So manifesting your success really helps in terms of the Pac-Man framework. And the A, as I mentioned, as part of affirmations is, as I mentioned, as part of manifestations is having positive affirmations, believing in you, because you need to start believing in yourself before you look for others around you to start believing in yourself. So together, all of that is the thing that I say is the Pac-Man philosophy. And it's not that easy to just do it just like that. It takes a lot of effort and time to really reflect on what your goals are, what you want to do with your life going forward. And I always say, take the Pac-Man with you wherever you go, because it acts as something that's going to help you whenever you have these negative mindsets. You nix all of those as part of your Pac-Man philosophy. The final N stands for you're nixing all the insecurities, philosophies that hold you back, and you go through that maze and come out successfully finding your way out.
Well, we touched upon so many topics. Pac-Man is definitely a game that wasn't gender specific, even though it has got man at the end of the
Hey,
name.
and you need men as allies. So let me say, people like Patrick, we need a supportive, inclusive community.
Absolutely, because empathy is my motto, and empathy is critical when you are developing your skills in STEM. So, Priyanka, we are coming to the end of the show, and I wanted to ask you a couple of vital questions. What is a number one book you can sit and think, oh, I wish I read it before I started my career?
Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. It's a deeply philosophical book that helps you understand what your legacy needs to be.
Well, that was a simple answer. I hope our production team caught it. Are you working on any exciting projects right now?
Yes, I'm working on two exciting projects. One being uh, a TEDx talk that talks about the impact for STEM with purpose, and the second one is a book proposal on how to overcome the fear of public speaking for women in STEM. So if there are like-minded people, I would love to connect and hear from you. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram, Priyanka Komala.
Well, we wishing you all the best of luck with
Thank you.
TEDx speech and the book proposal. Can you please give us your favorite life lesson quote, and can you share how that is relevant in your life?
This reminds me of my dad. I remember him every single day. It's been so hard losing him. And one thing that he always told me was soar like an eagle and never look back. And that's something that I try to stay true to the words that my dad said to this day.
Beautiful. We have question about the book again. If you could please say it slowly so we can capture the title and the author.
It's Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
There you go. Hopefully it's much better this time. Well, imagine the pandemic is over and you can invite any person in the world to have private breakfast anywhere in the world. Who would you invite and where would you take that person?
Hey, I would love to come and meet you, Beta. This has been a wonderful opportunity. So I would love for a rendezvous with you right in your hometown.
Well, my hometown is Torun, the birthplace of Nicolaus Copernicus, definitely a STEM progressor and achiever, although not really a female, but due to his long hair, some people were questioning his gender. Anyway, let's go back to our basics. We have got another show just next week. Priyanka, it's been a pleasure to host you here. I hope your book is going well. And if anybody would like to reach out to help Priyanka with her book or with her TEDx speech, they are more than welcome to do so. Next week, we are going to talk about building a global medical startup. So we are not leaving technology behind us. We are focusing on the medtech space and how to build a startup in the medical space. And I hope to see you next week, Wednesday, as usual, whether it's 6 p.m. CET, whether it's midday in the US
In the US.
sphere. Absolutely. We are looking forward. Priyanka, it's been emotional. I mean, we had to wait for almost 10 months, but it was definitely worth it. I'm really humbled to see you here on this show, and also the fact that you had this time to reflect and go back and to your roots and go back to India and meet with your family members was definitely something that we can always go back, take a step back to move forward. Definitely, teaching is an important factor in life. You can have a teacher who is going to make you or break you. I personally had a teacher who told me I am not going to pass any exam to go to my higher education in maths, but unfortunately she was not right. I passed that exam and she did not break me, so we can always go back to hack the future and do
Glad
it
you
in
did that.
silence if necessary, because if there is this urge, we can do it.
Thank you,
So
Beta. It's been a
thank
pleasure
you.
to be on your show, and I'm so glad we had this opportunity to reflect and talk. And thanks for the wonderful opportunity. And to the audience, thanks for the wonderful questions. I would love to get to know you better, so please connect with me on my social channels.
And you can capture Priyanka's podcast on her Curryup Leadership podcast. And that's it from episode 47 of the PhD livestream. Thanks to our guest, Priyanka Komala. To stay updated and ensure you never miss a positivity hack delivered, follow Women on It and turn on notifications to be alerted once a video has been released.
Great. And this is a great show. So everybody follow, like, share, and subscribe to her channels.
There you go. When you focus on the positives get more positive. As
Thank you, Beta.
always, our positivity quote comes from positive thinking only and goes, look for something positive each day, even if some days you have to look a little harder. Creativity is the secret sauce to science, technology, engineering, and math. It is a STEM virtue. Anissa Ramirez, PhD, former engineering professor at Yale University, said. And finally, let's go to Maya Angelou's favorite quote: if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude.
There you
Today
go.
is your day to hack the future. Hack the positivity you want.
Thank you, Beta.
Thank you.